Good morning. Welcome to River Community Church. My name is Sam. I'm one of the pastors here. As you can see, it's not your typical Sunday here at RCC. We're having a little bit of fun. I'm all dressed up. There's this little thing, and believe me, dressing up is as uncomfortable for me as it is for you. So don't worry, that won't happen again for a long time. So that's happening this morning. We've got a fun setup. Imagine this morning that you're at maybe Carson or Leno or Fallon, and you're enjoying yourself some late night television. You are in the studio audience this morning, call it this morning, and it's going to be a lot of fun. We're in our last week of the Underdog series, so we're going to have a little bit of an interesting morning with it. I can't wait to get started, but before we do, we're going to start how every good TV show on television starts, with a commercial.
Boy, some ketchup's slow. You mean your mom doesn't buy you Heinz? No, why should she? Wait till you taste it. Anticipation is making me wait. What do you think? Can I stay over tomorrow night too?
Welcome back. Thanks for being here this morning. Did you see what they did there? I don't know if you noticed it or not, but they took something that's absolutely terrible. I mean, how terrible are those glass ketchup bottles? You're like trying to get it out. It's not coming, then all over your plate. It's terrible. Has anybody experienced that? Yes? Okay, thank you. I'm not the only one. But they took something as terrible as that, and they made it amazing because you have to wait for it. Anticipation. It's beautiful. It's really great. I think that's pretty fun that they did that. It makes me think about Christmas. It makes me think about being a little kid at Christmas time because you have to wait for Christmas. There's all this built-up anticipation. You can't wait for that morning. And so as we get into December here and as we start that out, we're going to kind of celebrate that and have some fun with that and give you all kinds of different ways to anticipate Christmas this year. We're going to start with a 2-week series, a special 2-week series called Anticipation. That'll be happening over the next 2 weeks. It should be a lot of fun. In addition to that, next Saturday evening after the Saturday service, we're going to have a Christmas party. It'll be downstairs after the service with free Roadhouse pizza, some cookies to decorate with the kids, and plenty of corny Christmas carols playing in the background. It's going to be awesome. I can't wait for that. So come on out for that after the Saturday service next weekend. Additionally, 2 weeks from now, we're going to have the cutest Christmas concert of the year. It happens every year. We get all the K through 5th graders up here on stage to put on a little concert before the message. It's going to be awesome. I can't wait for that. Adam, I'm sorry, wherever you are, but they're way cuter than you are. So I'm excited to see them up here having some fun. And then the week after that, believe it or not, it's Christmas. Did you know that? It's that soon. So we're getting really excited, getting all the plans in place for our Christmas Eve service. It's coming before you know it. We actually have some invitations at the back of the church on your way out. Go ahead and grab some of these on your way out to invite somebody who may be looking for a place to spend Christmas this year or Christmas Eve. We have services at the high school. They'll be at 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock that afternoon on Christmas Eve, and it's going to be awesome. Tons of fun, a lot of fun, special surprises. You can't wait to be there. I look forward to that. So that's all happening. That's all these ways we can get ready for and anticipate Christmas. I'm excited about that. But now we're going to get to the show here. And before we do that, though, I've got a lot of stuff planned for this morning. I'm excited about a couple of specific things. I can't wait to bring up our guests. But before I do that, Sunday morning, it's typically this time that I catch up on some things. You know, I clean up my office, check my inbox, and I typically write out some thank you notes. And I'm running a little late this morning. Would you guys mind if I wrote out my thank you notes this morning? Yeah? Maybe? You can shake your heads. It's okay. You can talk. Yeah? All right, good. Sweet. I'm glad you're all right with that. Sam, could I get some thank you note writing music, please? Awesome. Got a pen here. All right. Ready? Thank you, Winter, for being so stylish. You know, fashionably late. Until this morning. All right, second one here. Let's see what we got. Thank you, Dickens of a Christmas, for helping us all feel a little less weird about peeking into strangers' windows. It's true, right? All right, what do we got here? Thank you, Giving Tuesday. Do you guys know what Giving Tuesday is? by the way? Do you know what that is? It's the day after Cyber Monday, which is a couple days after Shop Local Saturday, which is the day after Black Friday. You know what it is? Giving Tuesday is this day you're supposed to give to all these organizations that are really great, doing awesome things in the world, and so you're supposed to give some money to those people to help them out. All right, ready? Thank you, Giving Tuesday, for happening the day after everyone in America goes broke. It should be like Thursday, right? Make it on Thanksgiving. All right, I got a last one here for you this morning. Thank you, Pastor Mike, for asking which direction we all face when we're showering, toward the shower head or away. Now I can't stop thinking about church in the shower, and that's just weird. That's all I got for thank you notes this morning. Thanks for letting me do that. Man, I feel so much better. Got that out of the way. Got my desk all cleared off. Thanks for that. We're going to get started with the show now. I'm actually going to call up our first guest of the morning. I hear she cooks a mean peach pie. She's been in the business of forming young minds and their mathematical prowess for 20 years now, and she just so happens to be married to the lead pastor here. Please join me in welcoming the lovely Janet Holba. I love this. I have you up here without Mike. This is great. I can ask you all kinds of questions, anything I want. So I got to ask this first one, okay?
Okay.
This first one's been on my mind for so long. Mike, he always tends to, talk about how he must be doing something right because he's married to you. I just got to ask, what is it? Because we're still scratching our heads.
Well, when I first met him, he promised me that he was Mr. Fun, and I can honestly say he has not disappointed. But no, he's an amazing listener. He's the nicest, most caring guy.
Awesome. Well,
Truly.
I'm really glad to hear that there's something very special there. Now, for a bit more serious of a question, after Mike's comments in the sermon a couple weeks ago, I just have to know and make sure we're on the same page here. Which way do you face when you shower?
The right way, of course.
Which is?
Away from the shower head.
Thank you.
Right?
I'm glad we're not weirdos up here. Awesome. All right. Okay. In all seriousness, that shower thing was as much of a surprise as I couldn't believe it was such a big deal, but it was. But that's just a small thing in comparison to all the surprises that have happened since the churches began some 14 years ago. So thinking back over the number of years, can you tell us maybe a little bit about what the biggest surprise has been to you over the past 14 years?
Man, I think the biggest surprise to me has just really been over the years all the people that have come here and made, been a part of this church. And even when I think about it over the years, and then just even now, every week, new people coming. And in fact, I said that last night, and someone introduced themselves to me. It was their very first time at church, and I love that. I love that about the church.
That's awesome. So all these new
Surprising,
people
but
coming.
good. Yeah.
That's so cool. That is surprising and awesome, especially when you do crazy antics like this. So that was a huge surprise, and there's been surprises over the course of the years. But maybe the biggest surprise of all was this church happening in the first place, because it was a big surprise that a church could work in Ripon, Wisconsin, like this. So that's such a crazy thing. And to talk about that a little bit more, would you mind if I brought up your other half here and had Pastor Mike come up? Would you guys join me in welcoming Pastor Mike? Awesome.
Hello.
How you doing?
That's enough, all right? Come on, keep it clean.
She likes it.
So, Pastor Mike, thinking back, we just started about 14 years ago. Thinking back all those years, can you tell us a little bit about how this very surprising, really an underdog church came to be?
That story would take all day, but the beginning of it, the nuts and bolts of it, I was a teacher and I felt called to leave teaching and go into ministry, so went back to school and was pursuing that while teaching. And then while doing that, it felt specifically called that we wouldn't just get a job at an existing church, but we'd go somewhere and start a brand new church. Anywhere you look in America, 2/3 of the people living there aren't meaningfully connected to a church. That's just nationwide. So if 2/3 of every town doesn't go to church, there's got to be a lot of people that would like a new church, was kind of the idea. So we went and were assessed for that. You spend a week being assessed to see if you could do that, and they said that we were. At the end of that, they say, okay, yes, you should do this, and now you can go anywhere in the country. which was exciting for us because I kind of like everywhere. There's some big cities that I really like. I love fishing and that kind of thing, so small town life is really fun for me. I love it warm, so the whole South is great.
Florida.
Yeah. So we were looking all over the country, except North Dakota. I said I would go anywhere God told me to go, but not North Dakota. And I'm sorry if you're from North Dakota. I've never even been there. It just doesn't look good on TV. So I told God I'd go anywhere except North Dakota, and then literally I was afraid that God would send us to North Dakota to like teach us a lesson on how to obey. So yeah, that's how it began.
Great. Well, I'm glad you didn't end up in North Dakota for your sake and for ours. But how in the world did you end up in Ripon, Wisconsin?
Well, we didn't know anything about Ripon. We had been to Ripon one time in our life before coming here on a special day. People had said, "How about Ripon? How about Ripon?" And we just kept saying, "No, like Ripon. We're going to go to like Florida or Vegas or wherever up north where there's lakes." And people kept mentioning Ripon. And so finally we're like, okay, well maybe that's God. Maybe God's trying to tell us something. We'll go to Ripon and spend a day. So on our wedding anniversary, we chose to make a date out of it. We're going to drive to Ripon and hang out, see where there's to eat, see what we can get to drink, whatever. Just have a day in Ripon. So that was the plan. We drove to Ripon, and when we drove into town, this will sound weird or church freaky or something, but it's true. When we drove into Ripon, we just knew. We got here and somehow it just felt different. I was like, I think we're supposed to be here. And Janet felt the same way. We didn't know even how to get downtown. So we pulled over to the first parking lot we found and just prayed. And literally the prayer was, God, if it's supposed to be Ripon, please don't let me screw this up. Those are literally my words. That's as fancy as it was. And that's how we ended up. He said yes.
That's awesome. As you think back to all those years ago, we're actually in this Underdog series. This is our last weekend of the Underdog series. Can you tell us a little bit about how or some examples of how RCC has been an underdog over those years?
In every way possible. When you start a new church, the statistics of new churches are 90-some% of them don't make it anywhere. They don't exist after a couple years. They just didn't make it. No one came. So we knew that going in, and then we knew like going to a small town, that even upped the odds even more that we wouldn't make it. We had no denomination. We had no money. We didn't know anyone in Ripon. All those things were just like, you got like a 1 in a million shot that this is going to make it. So we were huge underdogs starting out.
That's awesome. Did anything go wrong? I mean, if you were such a big underdog, was there anything that was catastrophic or crazy?
Everything went wrong.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, for our grand opening service, we had been planning to have this grand opening service, and we took out a full-page newspaper ad, which was all the money that we had. The paper came on Wednesday, a few days before Sunday, and it wasn't in there. Like I kept ripping through the paper as fast as I could, and backwards, frontwards. They had forgot to run the ad. So I called, not that happy, with the newspaper. I called them up, and they were exceptionally apologetic. We had never advertised with them before. It just got misplaced. I had set it up months in advance. And they were super nice. They gave us a full page at Christmas and Easter and all that, but super scared then that no one would even come. Like who's even going to come to the grand opening? People did. I mean, people showed up. The paint was wet they were still painting this room on the day of our grand opening. So literally they said don't touch the walls, they're still wet with paint. Just the roof leaked in like 12 spots despite being new. The building flooded constantly. People told us don't go to Ripon. Once we made the commitment, everyone's like, oh, that's never going to work. Ripon's a small town. You're never going to be accepted unless you're from there. You got to be from there. You won't be accepted. And just everything. My kids used to holler out in the services. They didn't know any better. Like we spent a whole year and a half or whatever kind of getting set up here, and we'd always be in the building doing stuff, fixing things, do whatever. And they were just used to playing in the building. And so during the first services, they would just holler out like, "Hey, Dad, what's for lunch?" or whatever.
I think it's hilarious. It was actually my biggest fear when I was doing one of my first sermons, and my oldest son Ramsey was in the service, and I was so afraid he was just going to say, "Dad, you're taking too long," or something like that. Something like that he'd say. So that was my biggest fear. It makes me think, what was your biggest fear starting out? How about you, Janet?
I think that my biggest fear was the other pastors that I knew and pastors' wives, at least one of them had some type of musical talent, like they could sing or play guitar.
You can't do any of those things?
No.
Okay.
I was hoping my mic was muted when we were singing before church. But, and so there are a lot of ways I knew I could fill in and help whatever needed to be done, but I was like, neither of us can do that. So I didn't know how that was going to work as far as music.
So what did you guys do?
Well, it's actually a funny story the way she told me this. We'd been preparing to launch the church for a long time, and while doing that, went and visited other brand new churches just to check them out, see how they did things, see what we could learn. And so oftentimes that'd mean like a really early drive on a Sunday morning that was super far. So we were doing this. We're on like a 4-hour road trip to see this church. Early Sunday morning, I was late, so I was going extra fast. And Janet says as we're rocketing down the highway that she had something she had to confess to me and tell me. I'm like, oh, and she's been meaning to tell me for a long time. It's like, oh, okay. So I jerk the car off the road and stop. And then she says, I have to tell you, I've been worried about this for months. We can't do music at church. And it was the biggest relief of my life. I was like, big deal, who cares? And so we made a plan. This was the plan, get this. This was the plan for RCC Music a few months before we began the church. We'll play CDs. Because we had no ability. Usually people do. There's usually someone on the team that can do stuff. We didn't have anyone. So we'll just play CDs. And then I said, God, if you want it to be better than playing CDs, you got to do something better than that. That's the best we can do. So we're showing up. We'll do our thing. But if you want it better than CDs, then make it better. And if you've been coming here for a while, you know like how amazing the people that are in music are. That's all God.
That's awesome. So that was Janet's biggest fear. How about yours? What was your biggest fear starting out?
Teaching on Sunday morning. Yeah, I'd never done it before, so.
Okay.
Except I used to practice in the basement with Rubbermaid bins.
Nice.
That was my pretend podium.
I like it. So that was your biggest fear then?
We didn't have any money. I mean, there's no money for a podium. We had Rubbermaid bins. Podiums are expensive.
I think we should do that now. I think we should have Rubbermaid
okay,
bins.
great.
Just kidding. So that was your biggest fear then. How about now? What's your biggest fear now?
Teaching on Sunday mornings. For a different reason. People never believe me when I say that. I won't say that I'm nervous to speak on Sunday mornings because you guys are very, very nice to me. So even when it stinks, you're very nice. But I'm afraid. I'm not nervous. I'm afraid to speak on Sunday morning because when I speak on Sunday morning, my view is I'm trying to teach you what's in the Bible. And that's a very heavy thing. There's no room to mess that up. It shouldn't be opinion sharing time. It shouldn't be my views about life. It should be what God says about stuff. So, as a human, you can screw that up. So it's scary. And then I tend to do a lot of goofy stuff. So I'm afraid that someone would look at that and think less of God because I do goofy stuff. So it's a little scary to be like God's representative in front of a bunch of people.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. And I know that's a big part of your role here. You spend a lot of time teaching or getting ready to teach every weekend. It's a big part of your role. How about you, Janet? When you think about your role over the past 14 years, how have you viewed that? I mean, you've been teaching full-time for the 20 years, and then in addition to that, you had 2 small kids or young kids when you started out. How do you view your role?
When we started out, I felt like my role was just to do whatever needed to be done, whether it was typing a sermon or cleaning, helping in the toddler room. I used to work, I think, with the tech, making videos. I don't know. I did anything that needed to be done. I was happy to do it. But I really, through that and even now, felt my biggest role was just supporting Mike and taking care of him as best I could so he could do his ministry. And I think early on when I would get anxious about things, I really felt God telling me, just be yourself. I've put you here and I just want you to be you. And that relaxed me, and that's what I've tried to do throughout all these years, just be me.
I think that's so great and such a great thing to know about you guys. And personally, I think it's what I admire most about you guys is you're just yourselves. You don't take yourselves too seriously. You're fun. And that's actually become one of our values here at RCC is we don't take ourselves too seriously, but we take God very seriously. On the note of not taking ourselves too seriously, Janet, I'm curious what you think about, over the past 14 years, what's the silliest thing that's ever been done on this stage?
Well, it's really hard to pick just one. Every week is surprising. But I know one thing that comes to mind is when he put on the gorilla suit and was dancing on stage. You have a picture of that one, so yeah.
That's awesome.
He was pretty excited to do that.
Actually, my favorite part about that picture is not the gorilla suit, it's the computer in the background. That's awesome. So
I was just happy to wear a gorilla suit.
Awesome. So that was the thing you thought was most silly. How about you, Mike? What's the thing you thought was most silly over the past 14 years?
Well, like Jan said, there's been a lot of stupid stuff, but the one that people won't let me forget that they always bring up still so many years later is the anal leakage comment. Let me explain anal leakage. So a long time ago, there was this big craze, like everything was fat-free. All the food was going to be fat-free, and you could eat cookies and junk, and as long as it was fat-free, you wouldn't gain weight. So everyone was eating fat-free stuff like 10 years ago. And there were these chips that were out that were fat-free, but they came with a warning. There's a Lestra in them, and they came with this warning that they may cause anal leakage. So I was like shocked, like how good must those chips be? If you're gonna, that's a big risk for chips. So that came out in a sermon once, and I said the anal leakage, and people were shocked that could be said at a church or whatever. But I just keep saying it now so that you don't think it's a big. This is immersion therapy, all right? So that they just somehow that can't be forgotten.
Yeah.
I don't think it ever will.
We have Tinsel and the cat.
So
Yeah, did you hear the story this morning, Adam?
yeah, I heard.
His cat had anal leakage with tinsel?
Yeah, I think. So we obviously,
Merry Christmas to him. Holy cow.
we obviously don't take ourselves too seriously here, but we do. I'm gonna get really serious now. Right? Here's the transition. We do take God very seriously, and I'm curious as we think about that. How have you guys focused on taking God seriously here over the years? Mike, what do you think?
It really goes back to how we started with having nothing and no experience and all that, no people. We were just desperate for God to lead. We didn't have any tradition to follow. We didn't have any denomination to follow. We were just like, God, what do you want this to be? And so we just looked in the Bible all the time. It was like, well, if this is what God says, we'll just do that. And there was this desperation just to do whatever he said. And lots of stuff is in the Bible, and it's very clear. The stuff that isn't super clear in the Bible, we would pray and then make our best guess that we were trying to follow him. Here's a good way to explain that. We've been a church for 14 years. We've done a lot of stuff. Okay, gone from 0 people to 2,000 people part of the church, started other churches, started the food pantry, the thrift store, mugs, all the different things. So the leadership team at church has overseen all of that. And a leadership team at our church would be the same as all churches have them. Maybe it's called the leadership team or overseers or elders or church council, church board. Churches all have them. Here we just call it the leadership team. We've never voted. All those things we've done, we've never had to vote. Because I said from the beginning, if God is in control and he can convince one of us of something, he can convince all of us of the same thing. So there would never really ever be a need to debate something and then vote. We'll talk it through, and they're really smart people. We disagree about a lot of things, and then we wait, and we talk again, until finally we all see it the same way, and then we jump. So that would be a very concrete way to say that we take God seriously.
That's awesome, and I think it's a good testament to the way you guys have tried to run things and the way the church has been running, that we really take God seriously in that way. As you think about that, I know that it's not all peaches and roses and fuzzies or whatever. There are still plenty of struggles, late sleepless nights, and I know that it's still hard, but as you sit here this morning and as you look around the room at so many people who have had their lives impacted by Jesus and had their lives changed in so many ways, and in large part because of the faithfulness of you guys and God working through you, Janet, when you look around and see those people, how does that make you feel?
It chokes me up, honestly. Just to the people I've met, and my favorite thing is really hearing people's stories and how their lives have been changed through different ministries here at RCC, and really in ways I could have never imagined when we took this step years ago, and it continues. So I'm really thankful for that.
That's awesome. And what's fun about that is there are just so many stories. Speaking of which, I know that there's actually a story, it just happened a couple weeks ago. You guys got a letter or an email from someone. She was a student who had come to the church a couple of times or visited a few times when she was at college. And it's a bunch of years later, like 10 years later now, and she wrote you guys a letter and just talked about how it was super impactful for her to come to a certain service. Would you mind if we shared that with everybody? All right, would you guys take a listen?
Hi, Pastor Mike. I've been meaning to send this thank you note for a couple of years now. In looking back over my testimony, I am always reminded how you and RCC played a significant role in my faith journey, and I have been feeling a need to share it with you and the congregation to encourage you to keep reaching out to the college students. I was a college student at Ripon College and attending RCC from 2004 to 2008. I was fortunate enough to have been involved on the worship team on occasion. However, it was one specific, off-the-cuff sermon you gave that really brought me back to the Lord in the most impactful way. Growing up in the church, I felt I had a strong faith, and going into college, I was determined to be a light. It didn't take long, though, for that to get lost in the desire to feel accepted and to fit in. By my senior year, I had lost who I was and was so wrapped up in pleasing others, and specifically a relationship I thought was forever, even though he wasn't a believer. My identity in Christ was in the background. That relationship ended with a lot of heartbreak, and I felt so lost and alone. One Sunday, I felt like I was supposed to attend church, and I walked there alone. I had never attended any church alone, so the thought of it was scary to me. I sat in the back, and when you came up to teach, I couldn't believe it. You said you had prepared a message, but felt like you were supposed to share a video instead. It was the Everything skit by Lifehouse. Well, I lost it. That song was our song, meaning it was the song my ex-boyfriend had dubbed our song. So I had always attributed the meaning of the lyrics to my ex-boyfriend. I had literally been living as if he was my everything. Watching the skit, I knew the Lord was speaking so specifically to me, using this song to show me how I had my identity wrapped up in the wrong guy, and in the wrong things as well. I was crying, and I'm sure I left church immediately because I was so raw and broken. But this was the pivotal moment for me to repent and realize my identity needed to be in Him. I spent the last semester of my senior year seeking the Lord, finishing up my studies, and surrounding myself with my 2 Christian friends at school. I am now married to the godly man I know God had planned for me. We have 3 beautiful little girls, and we are serving and very involved in ministry at our church in the Twin Cities. We are all in, and I just wanted you to know that you have played a huge role in my faith. So thank you. Thank you for being obedient when God told you to scrap your message that day. It was the specific, personal, intimate way God spoke to me through that skit that makes God so amazing, and it completely broke me. Thank you, RCC, for being a beacon to the community. It changed the course of my future, and I am so grateful.
When you get messages like that, how does that make you feel?
Yeah, that was an email a couple weeks ago. It's hard. I mean, to read that email is very moving, humble. Like now, I thought about fishing while she was talking, so I wouldn't tear up. But those of you that know me better here know that there's really nothing special about me. Not that smart. There's way nicer people here at church. So for God to use myself or our church in these powerful ways, I mean, that's she's talking about something that happened for her 10 years ago. So 10 years later, she's still thinking about it is just humbling.
That's awesome. I think that's actually one of the things that I love most about this church is that there's no insiders, there's no outsiders. You can be a college student who's visited for a few times and still feel welcome when you walk in the doors. Doesn't matter whether you've been here for 14 years or if this is your very first time, you're part of the family, and we're happy to have you here. And I think that's really awesome. Speaking of that, Janet, if you could give maybe a few words of advice to someone who's maybe brand new this morning or just started coming recently, what would those words of advice be?
I'd have one piece of advice, would be just be yourself. I think I figured that out early on, and this is an awesome place. I think people are really nice, and just be yourself, and this is an accepting place.
Awesome. That's great advice. How about you, Mike? What do you think?
Well, Janet touched on it. She said people are really nice. The strength of the church, if you haven't figured it out yet, is there's a ton of nice people here. They're just everywhere. So it's a church of underdogs. It's a church of misfits. So if you feel like you're not good enough for God or good enough for church, this is the perfect place for you, because that would describe all of us probably, that I know at least. And then just to be nice. Just be nice. That's all you got. To come to RCC, just be nice to other people. That's it.
That's my favorite rule. We have one rule.
Just one rule.
Be nice. Yeah. Awesome. So you guys hear that? Did you all hear that? Be nice? Okay, good. I'm glad you're on the same page. This question is for both of you, but let's start with you, Janet. As you look to the future of RCC, we've been here for 14 years. I'm excited for 14 more and then for the future. But when you look to those coming years, what is something that you hope for RCC?
My hope is that we as a church would continue to help people just really take their next step in their relationship with God wherever they're at. That's the vision of the church, and I hope that we never stop doing that.
Awesome. How about you, Mike?
I would have to say mine's two parts. If you've been around a while, you know that we have these packed services sometimes where everyone doesn't fit. So for whatever now, a year, we've been trying to solve that, and we've talked about it a ton. I won't talk about it now, but the decision right now is that we're going to expand the seating in this worship center. So I'm excited about that. If you don't know, this stage in 2 weeks is going to be cut out. That stage is going to be raised up. The whole floor is going to be leveled, and that's going to fit 30 some more seats. That's super exciting because over 3 services on Sunday, that's 100 more people that can fit. So I'm really, really excited about that. So that's coming soon. I'm nervous too, though, I guess, because there's a lot that's going to change, okay? So just be okay with that. It's all going to be okay. The stage is going to change. The lighting's going to change. There's a bunch of change coming, and change can be difficult, but I understand it better than anyone. I've stood right there and spoke 3 times a week for 14 years, and now I'm going to stand over there, no podium, music stand, and instruments everywhere. It's going to be a big change. So going through the bumps of the change might be a little goofy, so I'm a little nervous about it, but excited about it. What I'm most excited about is our future is just the impact that we can have. The impact here at RCC just continues to grow, and there's other churches that we started all over the place, just amazing more and more impact, and I'm super excited about that. Like when we talked when we started, it was just Janet and I, the first 2 adults, and we did 100% of the ministry work. Now, with 2,000 people part of the church, hundreds of you serving in different ways, we do less than 1% of the ministry work here. From 100% to less than 1% is awesome, and it keeps getting smaller and smaller as more of you guys engage and do your thing. So I'm excited to see. I don't know what God's going to do with that or how he's going to work through people, but it's kind of fun. We've always felt like we have front row seats for miracles here. So now you guys have front row seats for miracles too, and it just is exciting.
That's awesome.
And to do that, you got to take a risk.
Yeah.
Right? For anyone to have those front row seats for miracle, you got to take a risk. I was watching a movie a couple weeks ago. It has nothing to do with church, but it's about taking a risk. I saw this and I thought, man, that's our church. So if we could show that, that'd be slick.
Yeah, please.
Just got off the phone with Boston. They diverted a plane from the Mercer, and it signed up the stern of the tank at Hamilton, 5 miles east of here. My God, 2 tankers broken in half in one day. It's got to be some kind of record. Boston and Nantucket have dispatched all their boats to the Mercer. They can't make it here in this weather. Webber, pick yourself a crew, take that 36-500 out, and you go over the bar and you find the stern of the Pendleton. You hear?
You know the bar on this kind of day, right, Bernie? A man in there don't know what he's doing. He's sending you out to die. You can't make it over Chatham Bar on a day like this. You can't stay afloat for long on half a ship, neither.
You know, just as on the Coast Guard, they say you gotta go out. They don't say you gotta come back in. That's regulation, you know.
Bernie, better you get lost before you get too far out there.
Oh, don't worry about me, Mr. Red. I can't get lost out there. I know those waters pretty good. How can I get lost?
No, Bernie, Dave's trying to say you should just motor around the harbor. So you tried to get out and couldn't, you know?
Thank you, Mr. Red. Thank you. Mr. Sam, I'm gonna do my best to get out there. I don't know if I will, but I'm gonna try. Okay. I guess Richie's in. Who else? I don't know, Gus. You can hardly lift your head.
Who else are you gonna take, Bernie? Well, Fitz is the only other engineman left. He's only 3rd class. We don't got the experience.
Hold on.
Yeah, I can do the job. I mean, I can do it. What do you can't go. You're sick as a dog, Gus.
He's right, Gus. One more.
Well, someone has to go out there and save those guys, right? That's why I signed up. Guess now's my chance. Seaman Irvin Maskey, Stonehorse Lightship.
It's a great clip. It's actually from The Finest Hours. That's the movie. But there's that line in there, the last one. Well, someone has to go out there and save those guys. That's why I signed up. And that's a great line because I think it's really not all that much different than I think why you guys signed up. You wanted people's lives to be changed by Jesus, and it mattered so much to you guys. That's why you signed up. That happened a number of years ago. Thinking about all of us here this morning, why should we sign up? What reason do we have to sign up?
To make an impact. Life can be about so much more than like going to work every day and making sure your bills get paid and diapers get changed and you know the stuff. That's required. You got to do it, but it can be about more than that. You can have an impact. The young lady whose picture was up. I mean, 10 years ago, people at this church had an impact on her, and now she's a mom. 10 years later, 3 kids, and trying to teach her kids about God. I mean, you can have that sort of an impact, and if Janet and I could do anything, all of you can do anything. I'm so impressed by the young people here at church. There is not yet, in 14 years, a young person that I've met here that hasn't had it more together than I had it when I was in high school or college. I was a complete idiot for like 24 years. So as I meet younger people here at church, it's like, man, if I was able to do anything for God, I can't imagine what they could do for God. So I just want you to think of that when you're making life choices. You can have an impact, an eternal impact. That's exciting stuff. It's worth the risk. It's worth taking the risk. That dude's like, I'll do it. I'll go. I guess it's me. That's it. You just got to show up and then let God do his thing.
So that's awesome. We should sign up. There's a reason to do it. But as you think about that, Janet, you're not paid. You're not on staff. What does that look like for you? Everyday life, normal life stuff. What difference does that make, or how does that look in normal life?
Well, I think I would encourage people just to get involved in some type of ministry. I've tried a lot of different ministries over the years, just whatever was needed, and some were maybe not the greatest fit for me, and some really were. And I think you find your passions through that, and really it's how you get to know people. So
That's awesome. So just getting involved, being part of it, and doing it in their everyday life, and that kind of a thing. That's awesome. As we close up here, we're about to finish up. Do you have any final things that people can look forward to, or anything that we should expect as a church, Mike?
Yeah, it's simple. I think you should expect always to be a bunch of underdogs. That's who we've always been. I hope that's who we always are, just a place where everybody fits. You can come from any kind of background, whatever, and that's who we are as a church, is just a group of underdogs. And that's not going to change. It's never like someday, all of a sudden, we're going to have our act together and be this amazing, perfect church. We're just always going to be this messed up, goofy family. So expect to continue to be underdogs, and expect us not to be able to do all the stuff we dream of. It's how it's always been. Like, we have these big dreams, we're going to do this or do that, and it's like, wait a minute, we don't have the people for that or the money for that or whatever. That's part of the underdog story, really, is you're always dreaming of more than you can really do. So expect that as well. Years ago, I talked about it in a sermon, and I used this illustration. We're a church that's always playing catch-up. We always have more stuff we're dreaming about or trying to do than we're really able to do, so we're always kind of catching up to our dreams. So let this catch-up be a reminder. Every time you see catch-up, think, wow, RCC, we're playing catch-up there all the time. And I'm going to give this away actually today as a fun reminder. And it's the good kind. You can squeeze it. You don't have to wait forever. There's no anticipation. But since you guys were brave enough to sit all the way in the front row, please receive this gift as a... So we're a church that's always going to be playing catch-up. That's what they can expect.
Awesome. Well, we have time for one last thought. Do you have one last thought for us?
Yep. I want to be careful on a day like today. We're up here talking, and it's like, ooh, look at them, and it's the Janet and Mike show. Not at all, man. If we've done anything special, it's because of God. And so I want to be sure that you understand that God should be the one to get the glory for anything that's happened here. God has done amazing things here. All we did was show up and try to do what he told us to do. So I want to be sure that God is the one who's glorified. I have one Bible verse to share about that. This speaks really well to what God has done here in Ripon. Now, glory be to God, by his mighty power at work within us, he is able to accomplish infinitely more than we would ever dare ask or hope. May he be given glory in the church and in Christ Jesus forever and ever through endless ages. Amen. So that is a perfect summary of what's happened in Ripon.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for coming up. I know it's a different thing. We've never done this before. It's been fun. Janet, thank you for being here. I appreciate you taking the time to be up here all weekend. As we close up here, I'm not going to have the band come up here and get ready for things. We're going to have a couple of final songs. During the first one, it'll be an offering time. This is a chance for us to worship God in that way. So if you call RCC your home, this is a chance to worship God in that way. If you're visiting, let the basket pass you by. As we close, though, Mike, I'm wondering, I think the best way to close this out is if you close us with a prayer.
Great, and here's how I'm going to do it today. This will be different than, we've done this every once in a while. We're actually going to pray scripture today. The reason I know that verse so well is because a church we attended many years ago, they closed a lot of the services with it, and so we just accidentally memorized it, and this was a closing prayer at that church. So I thought I could start, and then you guys could join in, and we could say it out loud together. We could kind of pray this Bible verse back to God. So I'll start us out, and if you're comfortable with that, just pray out loud with me. Here we go. Now, glory be to God. By his mighty power at work within us, he is able to accomplish infinitely more than we would ever dare ask or hope. May he be given glory in the church and in Christ Jesus forever and ever through endless ages.
Amen.